2020 has been an interesting year to say the least, and an important year for wrestling. The year started pretty good in January with all the Japanese promotions having their big shows, and later in the month I got to go see Yuka and Ito live, and in a short, awkward conversation with Ito, I said, "I'll see you in November," and yeah, that didn't happen. Wrestling companies had to come up with new ways of presenting their product with limited or no fans. This was either done by cancelling shows, limiting seating, or creating a weird dystopian future where fans are trapped in squares to watch forever. But there was the rise of cinematic matches, which I think has untapped potential. One of the best matches of all time ended up being a cinematic match. Other interesting events that happened in Tokyo Joshi were the start of the internet autograph signings, which finally broke me and got me to spend more money than I am comfortable sharing on autographed merch. And while I miss the streamers, the crowd interaction, and the wrestlers travelling, there were still a wealth of good matches, so let's talk about them. These are my favourite Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling matches of 2020. We start the year with most years in January, and the January 3rd show, which was Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling 2020. There were a huge variety of matches on this card, but to keep things concise, I decided to just pick one match from that, otherwise this whole list would just be match after match from that show. And I'm going with the Miyu vs Yuka match for the Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling Championship. I made a 20-minute video that outlines the history these two girls had leading up to this match, so if you want to know the storyline behind the match, please go and refer back to that. But the match quality itself here was incredibly high. It was probably the best match the two have had together. There was high-flying spots, there was goofiness around Kurikan Hall, there was hard-hitting strikes, and then there was the big climax at the end with Yuka finally beating Miyu to keep hold of her belt and make up for the time that she lost the belt after her first defense, and making it not look like a fluke, and the real passing of the torch moment from Miyu to Yuka. The next match I have for you is the Maki Ito vs Thunder Rosa match. Now, I know that Ito had a International Princess Championship match the day before with Hikari Noa, but I think that this is the better one. It plays to Ito's strengths, which is being the underdog, and the match really built a monster out of Thunder Rosa. The day before she beat up Mizuki, and now the day after she beats Ito and takes the International Princess Championship. And the match shows how hard Ito is willing to go to hold on to the title. All of Ito's offense is cut off really quickly, and she does a great job of selling her leg. And there's a great contrast there from the day prior when she was fighting Hikari to this match where she's gone from this strong fighting champion to this pathetic mess that reminds me of her debut match against Miyu. It makes Ito out to be a sympathetic underdog, and it creates a monster competitor for all the other Tokyo Joshi members to fight against in Thunder Rosa. Unfortunately, that plan kind of fell apart, but hopefully something can be salvaged out of this. The next match is a cheat. It's the series of matches between Natsumi Maki and Miyu Yamashita. It started in January 24th, and then there was another one on February 7th, and then the final confrontation was on March 20th. I think that they work together as a companion piece. I think the last match is definitely the best one of the group, but it really is because the other two matches built upon what was here. In the first match, there's smooth map-based wrestling before it eventually divulges into hard-hitting strikes. In the second confrontation, Natsumi is attacking right away, trying to catch Miyu off guard. Natsumi countering running strikes, and the second match itself is more strike-based, and Natsumi is way more reckless to try and get the upper hand over Miyu. And Natsumi even counters many moves that were incorporated in the first match. In the final confrontation, there are slick counters back and forth, but Natsumi is always on the defensive. There's smart ring awareness at play here, and the match builds to desperate ruthless attacks. Natsumi steals Miyu's German suplex, and Natsumi loses to all 3 of Miyu's big moves, the AA, the Crash Rabbit Heat, and the Skull Kick. Had the series continued, we probably would see the eventual overcoming of Natsumi to Miyu, but unfortunately it doesn't look like that's going to happen anymore, but who knows, it might one day. The next match is a couple months later because most shows were cancelled, but the next one is during the Princess Cup, and it is Yuka versus Misao. The match starts with the typical Hyper Misao trickery, which is a kind of callback to Yuka's early Princess Cup matches, where Yuka would use a lot of tricks and plunder to try and win her Princess Cup matches, but now she's on the receiving end of that. But after the tricks have been employed, it goes straight into really smart wrestling, with the storyline of Misao trying to prevent the Magical Girl Splash and Yuka trying to ground Misao by attacking her ACL. One of the most exciting points of the match is the Vanitesse attempt that Misao does, because it's the first time she's ever tried to do a Vanitesse since she broke up with Bishigun in December last year. And the final sequence is a really quick flurry of pin attempts that ends in a sneaky roll-up by Misao, with Misao pinning the champion Yuka. I was shocked that it happened, and I am super glad it happened. And I thought this would lead into a Hyper Misao title opportunity, but I'm just happy that she's still with the company at this point. Next up, on August 29th, we have Ito versus Mizuki. This continues to build on the series of matches the two have had back and forth. Mizuki won last year's Princess Cup, and Ito is trying to prove herself after the awful year she's had with her losing the International Championship to Thunder Rosa, and her having this weird loss of power because she can no longer draw from the energy of the crowd because they're not allowed to chant for her anymore, and she's been appearing in no audience shows. The match is really intense with lots of close calls. At the very end, it looks as though Ito is going to beat Mizuki and one-up her, but then Mizuki busts out a brand new move that Ito could not see coming, and that allows Mizuki to get the win over Ito. The next match is also one from the same day. It's the Shoko versus Miyu match. It's been over a year since their last singles match, and it really shows how experienced the two are when working together. There's slick mat-based wrestling from the start, and the storyline is Shoko trying to climb the uphill battle, which is Miyu, and Miyu is just badass in this match, just kicking Shoko around like she's just a rag doll. It's great, and Shoko does a fantastic job of playing the underdog, even though she's one of the best wrestlers in the company. And then during the end sequence, the Northern Light suplex doesn't work. Shoko manages to dodge a skull kick, and it ends with a kind of fluky roll-up win, which I think works. It keeps Miyu looking strong and Shoko looking scrappy in her win, and you don't want to bust out like the big moves in the semi-finals. You want to save that for the finals so that it looks more impressive. The next series of matches is the Kamiyu tournament matches for the International Princess Championship during Wrestle Princess. I'm being a bit greedy here, but I don't care. I was really pleased to see Kamiyu step up to the plate after having no real direction in Tokyo Joshi. So I'm having both matches here for different reasons. Both matches have their pluses. For instance, I enjoyed Kamiyu's aggression against Shoko, with her just drop kicking Shoko immediately and then getting really savage with Shoko's legs. But I also enjoyed the storytelling in the Hikari match, which I think was stronger. Hikari trying to get back Natsumi's belt and Hikari attacking Kamiyu's injured fingers, I thought was a good touch, and Kamiyu weakening Hikari's arm so that she can't do the Uranagi. And there's the escalation of the finisher, the Shoko match. Kamiyu hits Shoko twice with the Famouser, and then in the finals, Kamiyu has to pull out a Brett's rope Famouser. So it's the escalation, which is good to see in tournament matches, especially when they're back-to-back like this. So the Shoko match is definitely the best technical match. Shoko made Kamiyu look the best she's ever done so before, and I like these matches because I'm a little smug that I called that this would happen. Next we have the Saki Akai versus Hyper Misao match. Now, we're not here for the match quality, but this is a Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling style match through and through. It makes me laugh every time I see it, with all its neat gimmicks, and the match type is constantly changing to keep things fresh and interesting. And apart from the fact that you need to look up what the stipulations for each match is, which you can quickly do, the comedy in the match is physical comedy based, so there's nothing that should be lost in translation. It's not really a wrestling match, but the last man standing portion is very dramatic, with Misao finally hitting the Vanitas, Saki Akai hitting the Quetzalcoatl, and Misao desperately trying to get to her feet. It's really dramatic and emotional. There's still long-form storytelling that happens in the match. There's the reintroduction of the chocolate cream puffs that have haunted Misao for so long, and there's the inclusion of the tag partners, with Yukio Sakaguchi tagging in with Saki Akai, where I was a little disappointed that it wasn't Jun Kasai who came out to help Misao. And this match just shows how strong the variety in Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling is, because you can have a silly match like this which has a good work rate to it, but then right afterwards you have my next pick, which is the Yuka versus Mizuki match. This was a well-deserved main event for Wrestle Princess, the biggest show so far. It felt really important, this match. It had a big match feel because it was a large arena it took place in. It had two of the best workers in the company. Both of their stories leading up to this point were important. You had Mizuki winning the Princess Cup for the second time in a row, and you also had Yuka holding on to the belt for so long in a very, very hard year for everyone. The build to the match was long. It took over 2 months since, or about a month and a half since Mizuki won the Princess Cup, and then 2 months of build into the Wrestle Princess main event. You had Miyu on commentary, the ex-champion. It was a grueling match that was exhausting. You could see how much of a toll it was taking on the two girls, how long they were fighting for. The story of Mizuki trying to be on Yuka's level and Yuka actually trying to get her to that level was a nice touch. Both had perfected their techniques at this point. Mizuki with her twirling spinning candy rabbit thing, and Yuka with her magical chicken bastard, both pulled off flawlessly. The two work so smoothly, and they know each other's moves so well that lots of counters and moments that were built on top of one another. Next, we have the 5-way match that was on the 20th of November. You don't see matches like this in Tokyo Joshi, I don't think, ever. I think this is the first time we've seen like the 4 big stars in Tokyo Joshi and the dark horse popular vote of Ito all in the same match against each other. It's a good introduction to the promotion because you get to see the big stars of the promotion. You get a feel for all their personalities, their quirks, and their big moves. You get Ito being really cocky and that being her downfall. You have the history of Shoko and Yuka as they tag team together on the much more powerful Miyu. And then I think you have like the opportunistic Rika, who is definitely like a threat in the match, but she's kind of to the side most of the time, but then at the end when it's just her and Shoko, she steps it up and proves herself to be a contender for the championship, which was what this match ended up being for. Everyone, as I said, everyone plays each other really well, and it's not just a standard fight, there's comedy built into the match, so the match starts really light-hearted and you get invested in it over time as it gets more exciting as more and more of the girls are eliminated. It's fast and frantic and there's no downtime. My final pick for the year is probably one that's going to be a bit contentious, but I don't care. It is the Hyper Misao retirement section. It's not really a match, even though there is a match that's a part of it. The segment itself shows how much of a tight bond all the girls in Tokyo Joshi have. The segment starts with Misao announcing her retirement, and Sasadango Machine creates a game to decide who the retiree should be. The segment helps to humanize Misao further. We know her backstory as to why she became a pro wrestler, but now we pull the mask off, so to say. We get to know her true age, we get to know where she grew up in, and the match itself is injected with what Misao is passionate for, as well as wrestling, which is her poetry. The gifs and the poems that the other wrestlers give and recite help to enforce their characters and their personalities. And the final match with Rika was short, but it didn't have to be long, and it felt really big because all the girls came down to see it all around at ringside, and the match itself took place in the same arena that all the other Rika matches had taken place. Then there was Misao's ending career speech, which has the typical Hyper Misao swerve. So you go from the relief of her not retiring to the excitement and the good for her feeling of Misao getting married and getting proposed to. But I would only recommend this match to Tokyo Joshi fans who have been watching for a decent amount of time. I don't see anyone who watches this as their first match and puts aside like an hour and 20 minutes to watch it all, especially if they don't speak Japanese and don't have like the translation notes up. You won't get anything out of this match. But for someone like me who's a complete and total Hyper Misao mark, it ticked all the boxes for me personally. The joy and love that is shown in the match is moving, and it's what wrestling should be about. It should be about the emotion, you caring about these characters and following their career, and when big important moments happen in their life, you should feel connected with them. Sure, you can have high work rates and flashy moves, but if the people who are connected to them you don't care about, then what's the point, really? I know it's a cop-out, but I don't care. So there you go. This wasn't a particularly exhaustive list. I mean, there were plenty more matches that happened in Tokyo Joshi which I really liked, but I basically had to cut down for time. If there were any matches in Tokyo Joshi that you liked, please let me know what they were. I'd like to thank you all for watching, not just this video, but every other video that I've done this past year. It was kinda out of nowhere that the videos took off the way they did, and I do appreciate everyone who watched them. It's been a pretty sucky year, no doubt, for you, and it has been for me, but making these videos and having them watched so many times and having those nice comments really helped get me through the year, at least. It's been the most rewarding time I've done creating content for the internet. It's been absolutely crazy. Like, some of my videos are used as sources for wrestling articles. It's mad. I wasn't expecting this sort of attention. So I'll see you all in the new year, where we'll get back started with the career retrospectives. The Saki-sama video, maybe it's coming. Maybe I'll just hold on to it, because I know that as soon as I release that, you guys will have nothing to, you'll no longer have any more reason to stick around, because you've seen the video. It'll probably just be all the segments from all the previous videos, and I'll just put them in one video as a clip show. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the new year.